this is not all from me. I honestly think a large part of this is actually in CrossFit Level 1 certification. But before people hate on that, I think it makes a lot of sense, which is if you were to think about a continuum of health being the following. On one end of the curve is sickness/illness. And this would include like injury, chronic disease, right? Anything which is you are not doing well. Doesn't necessarily mean you're in the hospital, but you are not well. You're not healthy, right? Because you're here. And then further down that continuum, we get to wellness. And wellness is like, I would say it's like just average, which means you're not doing well. Like you might have a couple nagging injuries or none. You're maybe not terribly overweight, but you still might not be active, right? You might not actually go for walks or do things that are health promoting, but you are in the definition in like the academic world of like wellness, which is like you're the average statistic, right? Like if you were just live the way you are, you're going to be okay, but you're not sick. But then further on that continuum is fitness. And it's a continuum, so there's ranges of fitness, right? And so if wellness is here, I'm not really contributing to my health, but I'm doing enough that I'm not sick or ill. Further down that continuum is going to be people who are training muscle mass, doing cardiovascular activity for their heart, thinking about eating good quality foods, right? Pursuing relationships and emotional health. And then all the way at the end of the fitness side of the continuum is just as bad as sickness and illness in a lot of ways, because you are pursuing that so hard, whatever you are pursuing, that it's now giving you negative repercussions. So let's give, like we were talking about in the first podcast that we recorded was like Olympians.
Yeah.
Most Olympians, people don't know this, but most Olympians, when they train and say get their gold or silver medal or whatever, have a lot of issues in the moment. Almost all of them do. That's why they're constantly getting massage and chiropractic, all these things. And also a lot of these Olympians, 15, 20 years later, their bodies are destroyed. Or a good example I've given in the past is like Ronnie Coleman, who's a famous bodybuilder and won like 7
Mr.
Mr. Olympias. So obviously he was very accomplished, but he's like not super old right now. He's got to be like mid 60s or early 70s.
Yep.
But his spine has been broken 3 times from the weights he's lifted. He can't walk without crutches. He can't do a lot of movements. His body is like destroyed because he was so far in the fitness level. And I guess what we were trying to talk about in the previous podcast is our goal and what we think people should be doing is somewhere past that wellness and somewhere before the end fitness is where we should be aiming to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of hard to find that, but maybe some things that people can think about that can help quantify it is like, do you only do strength training? Yeah, you're a little bit more specialized. You're losing cardiovascular health benefits, which are important for preventing heart disease and heart attacks and many other things, right? On the other side, are you only doing running? Do you run 5 times a week? Well, your range of motion and joint integrity is probably going to be crap over time, right? So you're going to have negative effects. So you're trying to be more in that fitness range than wellness, where you're just complacent. And so you're pursuing food and fitness and all these things in a smart and balanced way so that you are, in a way, you're a superior human as an individual human, right? You can probably fight off disease, unnamed diseases better, right? And flus and colds. You can probably weather more joint impact, right? You can go for several runs and not have ankle or hip issues. But if you're this person, you're like, oh, I went for a 2K run and I rolled my ankle. It's like, what are you, made of sugar?
And I think it's important to know too, it obviously depends if you are playing a sport at a super high level, having an understanding that you might be more here than the average, individual is okay. Or there might be times of your life where like you're a little bit more fitness focused than wellness focused. Just thinking of myself, right? When I did CrossFit more competitively or Olympic weightlifting, I know that my body wasn't super healthy. I could lift a lot of weight and I can perform, but like waking up and doing a standard air squat didn't feel all that well, right?
Yeah.
So I think knowing that, your body is going to go through these different times of its life where like, focusing on fitness is okay, but just know the long-term consequences might outweigh the current benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just depends on how hard you're pursuing that fitness.
Yeah, and what your goal is.
Yeah.
That's good.
I learned that a long time ago, but I still think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Which is like, where am I? And I don't mean in any kind of demeaning or rude, or I don't value these people as worthy or any kind of way. But most people, and you're probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not here. Most people are here. Like this is why, whatever the stat is now, 75 or 80% of North Americans, not just Americans, but Americans and Canadians, are obese and have 5 health issues. Because most people are here, they're living in complacency land. They're not investing in nutritional health, emotional health, fitness health, whatever health. Most people live here. It's really sad. But like thinking about like why so I was initially going to be going into like physical therapy. And one of the reasons why I moved away from physical therapy and went more in the training route, although I still could have done the following as a physical therapist, is I started learning all the stats of like the government of Canada spends, I have no idea what it is, $50 billion a year on gastric bypasses and all these different things. And it's like all this money wouldn't need to be spent if people were living more here.
Yeah.
But so many people are living here, and it's a burden on all of us. It's a burden on our financials. It's a burden on our taxes. It's a burden on your family, right? If you choose, which you might not know you're making the choice, but if you're choosing to live in this spectrum your entire life, you die early, you have lots of sicknesses, you require all these things, which is a burden on your family. And people don't really think about that. But if you're living more here, you can probably empower your family. You probably live longer. You probably live better while you're living longer. You probably can do more things with your family. You can probably support the next generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to crap on anyone, but there is a better way to life, and this is a better way to life. 100%. It's not an opinion than living like this.
Yeah. I think we just live in a reactive society, right? And I think that's the difference between, or why we're trying to promote, what do you think?
And that's one of the things I used to tell people when I kind of made the switch is I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive.
Yeah. Boom.
Keep going. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm in this industry as well, is because I like being a part of the solution, like being proactive, trying to get ahead of these diseases that are so, I don't want to say easily, but so easily, cured, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not to happen.
Yeah. And just so people know, you're not talking about the word right now.
No.
You're talking about like heart disease and strokes. Like these things are actually, unless there's like a very specific genetic issue, which is actually very rare, these things are very easily prevented. Go for a walk every day of your life. Your chances of having a stroke are so much less.
Even, so it's something you said a long time ago that just is really hitting home. So my parents are getting older, and my mom will kill me if she hears this, but my mom had like a little bit of a fall. She was making, this is so Portuguese, she was making cod on Christmas Eve. Okay.
Ew, that's so gross.
It's so Portuguese, right? And she cooks it
I
outside.
like cod a lot, but the thought of Christmas Eve, was just strange.
Yeah. Oh, of course. So she was
gross.
making cod Christmas Eve, and she didn't want to stink up the house, so she was cooking it outside. And it was a little bit slippery, so she slipped and fell and like legit broke her wrist. And, I'm like, you've always talked about the importance of being able to get off the floor without using your hands, the importance of, training your lower body and having a strong lower body so you can get up off the floor as you age. And like, I've always known it was important, but when it really hits home, like if my mom didn't have the power to get up off the floor, she could have just been lying there outside. Mm-hmm. And if no one was home, like God forbid, what could have happened?
Yep.
So it's like just little things, like going for walks, doing a few squats here and there. Like you have no idea when it can actually save your life.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example based off that, which is there's these like watches or monitors that you can buy when you get into your elder years that alert someone that you're in distress. And the example would be you fall, you cannot get up, so you need someone to come and help you. And this is usually done in like a retirement home or like an old age home or something like that. But it's like begs the question, which is like if you're 78 and you fall and like you understand the situation, right? I can't get back up because I hurt myself. I can't get off the floor though. But like I'm aware of my situation. Like mentally, I'm doing all right. But it's like I can't get up. It's like, yeah, you could have done a lot to prevent that.
Yeah.
And it's not like 78 is young. Or sorry, yeah, it's not like it's excessively old. Like you should be okay at that point, I would think. I'm not talking about your mom, but just people in general. Yeah, there's a lot of people can do to prevent their health, but it's just we won't go into a rabbit hole here because it could be just rants, but it's the hubris of humanity for 800,000 years or however long we've existed, which is we live in the now. We don't think enough about the future, and we take for granted what we can do now.
Yeah.
But things are changing faster than we know in our body, and people lose capability more than they know, and it happens.
Yeah. last bit before we completely end it. The first time we recorded this, I know I was narrow-minded in the thought of like, all right, health is being well-balanced with fitness and being well-balanced with nutrition. But then you brought up this whole side of like the emotional piece of health as well, which I didn't even think about. Can you touch a little bit upon that?
Yeah, like health is not just your physical activities and your nutritional intake and how flexible you are, right? It's your emotional status. It's like what, like, I mean, I'm gonna give examples if people aren't already understanding, but like, why do we now see that so many people who have PTSD, whether they're a veteran or a paramedic, whatever, commit suicide or have issues? It's because their emotional health is not well. Mm-hmm. And it's not a victim type thing. Like that paramedic did amazing work helping people for many years, but the stress of it wasn't well managed in a way, and now something bad happened, right? So people's emotional health, mental health, you could say spiritual health, it's like three pillars, like emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever you want to say that thing is. That's all one thing. Physical, nutritional. And physical would include everything, cardiovascular, strength, mobility. It's like those things are equal. It's not like there's these two and then there's kind of emotional. Most people die or pursue the lifestyle that they have because of their emotional issues, right? So most people who don't exercise or eat well, it's because of their emotional issues, right? It's because of whatever. So if you want to be a healthy individual, you need to be pursuing those three pillars. And I would say actually the emotional, mental, spiritual side is actually probably the most important, because we see strange instances of people who don't live really healthy, but like they're really religious. And that thing, I'm not saying you need to be religious, but I'm saying that their belief in that makes them so positive, or so hopeful that the things that probably shouldn't be doing as they don't do as bad of damage as they could, which is, and people don't really understand how it works. But
yeah, it's funny how like all three of those pieces though, right? Like the emotional piece, the nutritional piece, and the fitness piece. Yes, like there's certain ones that could be argued that are more important than the other, but they all rely on each other as well. Like there's been a ton of studies related to fitness and anxiety and mental health. There's also been obvious studies around nutrition and fitness and all three, right? So it's interesting how you kind of need to be well-rounded in all three to live like a truly healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the last piece, sorry, this is just another narrow-minded Isaac view, and I think it's important to touch upon because we do own a gym, which is when we think of the fitness piece, it's too easy to just commonly think of, okay, cardiovascular and strength. And those are two pieces, but one that gets sadly forgotten about but is super important is things like flexibility and mobility. So still having that as a part of your everyday routine is super, super important. And I know you would obviously agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you can bench press for 60 years and not feel like you're going to have any issues, and then you hit 70 and you can't move your arms overhead.
Yeah.
It's a problem, but people didn't know. Yeah, and we're also at a point which is just we are at the luxury of learning from the last 4 years or whatever it's been of mal-approach, which was not malicious from anyone's intent. It's just that people didn't have the knowledge that we do now. We also have the internet, so we can connect with different groups and physiotherapists and chiros in different countries and gymnasts. And so we're at a time where we can have a lot more understanding about how to take care of ourselves, where the 70s, right, like where your mom came from, my parents, like they might not have had that.
Yeah.
Some people like, it's the dumbest quote ever, which is like, don't eat something if your grandma wouldn't eat it. And then I see like on the internet rebuttals, like grandmas don't know what quinoa is.
Yeah.
Or don't know what like this like dino kale is. It's like, so it's like, just because it's from the older generation doesn't mean it's healthier because they knew much. Like a lot of times we are better empowered now.
Yeah. No, for sure. Cool. Yeah. So my dad was in the last little rant. My dad was in the army in Portugal. Like you had to go to the army when you reached 17 or 18. And every once in a while he'd tell me about like their workouts. So it's just like a dad thing where he's like, oh, I used to be fit, Isaac. I used to be fit, and I'd wake up, I'd run 5 kilometers, and then he'd be like, I'd do the arm circles, and he'd do all these little motions. And I'm sure it's what they did back then, but it's just so interesting. It's so interesting to see how far fitness and nutrition has come over the past, 70 years.
Totally.
It's cool. All right, my man. Well, thank you. This felt way better.
It's good.
Quick goodbye. Have the best day ever. Bye for now.